Vancouver Hockey Show, Andrew Wadden, producer Aaron. We're going to get right to it, Aaron, because it is the season finale. Summertime. That's right. We'll put a little Fresh Prince on to enjoy ourselves. We're going to get JD Burke from Elite Prospects to join us. We'll break down everything that's happened in the offseason because I haven't had a chance to talk to JD. We'll get his analysis on the draft because I know some of you wanted that. And then we'll talk about free agency and everything else. Let's get to it. Joining us for the season 1 finale of the Vancouver Hockey Show, our good buddy JD Burke from Elite Prospects. JD, how are you? Is it hot enough for you?
Very hot. Very hot. I have to have the headphones in because I have the AC going full blast, so can't be disrupting the recording with that. But no, I'm managing. I mean, I got the beach pretty close by, so I've been soaking in the sun when I can and really enjoying the off season. You know, we grind pretty hard at Elite Prospects. We had the draft guide come out, and that was close to 2,000 pages, all of which I had to edit. So you can just imagine how bad the burnout is, how ready I am to do absolutely nothing, or not a lot. Maybe say not a lot, not absolutely nothing, because we have to keep the doors open. But really enjoying the off season.
Well, you're doing this, so that's good.
Yeah, exactly.
It is hard to get hockey people at this time of the year. July, August, season. Like after that first week, you just shut the door, right? Nobody else come back in. Don't talk to me until at least early September. But I do want to talk to you a bit about the draft because we kind of skimmed over it on one of our pods just because, as you know, JD, I'm not the biggest draft guy. Like clearly know the bigger names that get picked, although this year I didn't really have a clue outside of Celebrini. So walk us through it a little bit here because the Canucks top pick was a 3rd rounder. I believe it was 93rd overall. These players don't work out that the Canucks essentially drafted. Well, prove me wrong.
Well, I can't because they don't work out for anyone. I mean, the draft has become so efficient that once you get past about 40th overall, the likelihood of finding an NHL talent is about, cumulatively from that spot, probably 10 to 15%. And the Canucks obviously haven't distinguished themselves as the upper echelon of drafting teams in the NHL. I mean, you look at the draft page on Elite Prospects and they haven't graduated anyone in a very long. 2019 is the last season that they got anything out of the draft. Of course, there is lagging indicators, take some time for these players to develop, but those are the odds, right? And so you look at what they've done with these picks and what you want is reasonable bets. That is my rule. You don't complain if it is a reasonable selection. So if they haven't reached, if they haven't gone off the board, if they haven't been too clever by half, then you have to be happy with it. And I think that a lot of these selections meet that criteria. I mean, I look at Melvin Fernstrom, and this is someone who I got in a little bit of, I don't want to say trouble, but we have a European scout, we have a Swedish scout, and they've been following him all season. And I saw him at the U18s, and he was on the top line with Alexander Zetterberg and blanking on the third part of that line, but they were cooking. And Fernstrom really showed me some intelligence away from the puck, his ability to shoot off the pass, to distribute the puck with pace. I saw a lot of intelligence. I saw a lot of off-puck cunning. I mean, if you're going to score in the NHL, a lot of what you have to do is create shooting opportunities for yourself. And you're going to do that not with the puck, but away from it. And we don't want to rehash the Jake Virtanen battles, but that was something that he lacked. When we talked about the lack of hockey sense with him, that is what we were describing, is the inability to separate away from the puck and create shooting opportunities for himself. And this is something that Fernstrom has distinguished himself with at the U18s. Now, when I checked in with our European scout and our Swedish scout, they said, I'm not so fond of him. You just show up and you love a player. We've been, I don't want to say poo-pooing, but putting down for the whole season. But their concerns relate to, his inability to play through contact. A lot of scouts in the NHL share those concerns that he's a bit soft. They also worry about the foot speed. But at a certain point, you have to realize that once you get past about 50th overall, though, you're not going to find a complete prospect. The draft is too efficient at this point. So he meets all the criteria I look for in a 3rd round pick. And do you want me to go on about some of the other players?
Well, I mean, what do you think though? Like, is it even worth it? Right? Because you're looking at 4th, 5th, 6th rounders at this point, 7th rounder. Like the guy they've got in the 7th. Did he learn how to skate a couple years ago? Like
a couple.
What's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, Basil Sanson and Celeste said, the better. I don't want to be mean to the poor guy, so
Yeah.
we'll bypass that one. I mean, famously, I'm pretty soft, right? Riley Patterson, they took him in the fourth round, and I thought well of this pick because, I mean, when I look at the way the Canucks have drafted in previous years, one of the things that has really kind of stood out to me is the way they have coveted traits above production. So they'll look at someone who can skate well, but then you look at the bottom line and it doesn't augur future success. In this case, they kind of changed up the philosophy, and you can see that start with Bergstrom carry through to Riley Patterson. This is someone who there's some disagreement about his foot speed, but our scouts view him as a really solid player in open ice. I mean, he can score off the rush. His hockey sense has to develop a little bit. He's pretty inefficient. He doesn't create off the cycle. He doesn't have the same kind of in zone.
So he's not making the NHL.
Almost certainly not. Almost certainly not. But you might get a good trade chip out of him. And this is instructive because this is what Henry Brustevich was for them in the Elias Lindholm.
Yeah, but Brustevich looks like he could play, though. No, doesn't Calgary feel like he's going to be a player?
He could. But what I'm saying is you place bets that are in that mold and you get trade chips. You look at the Canucks picks in this range from last season, nobody is trading for Matthew Perkins. Do you know what I mean? And so this stands out to me from a process standpoint. And something I've thought about is Ryan Beach, old friend of mine, he worked at Canucks Army.
He worked for the Canucks, didn't he?
He does.
Yeah,
And one of the things I'm kind of thinking about is, has his influence grown? Because these are pretty analytically savvy selections. And, that carries through to Anthony Romani. I mean, he had 111 points. If he was born 3 months later than when he would be eligible for this draft. First time eligible. He was a re-entry. And again, he has a profile that you could develop him into a trade chip. I don't think he'll play. A lot of re-entries don't, but he could be a trade chip. And so, I think in one sense, you're correct to not want to talk too much about these draft picks because I don't think they have a cumulative single NHL player between them. However, they might have assets. And I think that is worth accounting for and perhaps even giving some praise to the Canucks for changing up the process and getting some good selections here.
It's an interesting theory, though, like just to think about them as assets in terms of trades and just sort of how you can maybe sell them to others. Like, oh, hey, we got this good fourth rounder. We're really high on this guy. Maybe we want to add him to, one of these trades. So I can see why, you could look at it in that regard. But it's just, you just look at the sheer, all you got to do is pull up, elite prospects and look at through the draft history. And you can see how many guys after the third round essentially do make it into the NHL. So that's why I just didn't want to get overly excited about it. Sometimes I find people just get too much into it. And then you're like, you do realize that that guy's never going to play an NHL game. So we'll see though. We'll let it play out. And I like the idea of Ryan Beach being in there and giving his sort of analysis and insight when it comes to, sort of breaking down a player. And, maybe, yeah, you're right. Maybe that could be somebody that you could sell to somebody else and perhaps polish it up a little bit and make it look better than what it actually is. So who was the steal of the draft then? Like, obviously, Celebrini is a great player. He's now signed with the Sharks. I was actually kind of surprised. I thought maybe he might go back. I know that sounds weird with a first round pick or a first overall pick, but just where the Sharks are at in terms of, their cycle and whatnot, I thought maybe they might give him back to college for one more year, but they seem to be wanting to accelerate things a little bit now that they've got him. So outside of Celebrini, like, who's the steal of the draft?
I mean, for me, it's Liam Greentree. I have no idea how he fell to 26. I mean, actually, I do. He had a bad U18s. And some teams, they place too much emphasis in that tournament. I mean, one of them historically would be the Canucks. You look at them choosing Danila Klimovich ahead of Logan Stanko, and that is a mistake they have fallen prey to on many occasions. And I think the same thing has happened with Liam Greentree. This is someone who played on an awful Windsor Spitfires team. We had him ranked 15th, right? So that's almost a full half round ahead of his draft position. He reminds us a lot of Matt Boldy. He kind of has that power forward mold, distribute off the backhand, can draw pressure, create openings for his line mates. And there was nothing to work with on his team in the OHL. I mean, I think the U18s are part of why he fell. I also think the fact that he played on such an awful team contributed to that plummet. because there was only one player to watch. So scouts probably weren't in a rush to watch the Spitfires. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And so he put up 90 points, 64 games on that team. I think his next highest teammate is 60. So that ought to give you an idea of how much he's ahead of his environment, how much he's outproducing his environment, I should say. And he's 24 clear of his next highest teammate, who was a 21-year-old. So,
wow.
He's done pretty well for himself. And I think, the Kings, they have a habit of, they don't trade up, they don't reach, they don't, overextend themselves. What they do is they sit back, they let the board fall as it may, and they clean up teams' mistakes. And they've done really well at the draft with that philosophy. And I think that Liam Greentree could be one of the latest examples of them doing precisely that.
Canuck fans do not like to hear the name Matt Boldy. They do not like to hear the name Matt Boldy. I mean, I know when I was doing Rink-Wide with J-Pat, him and I used to talk about it all the time, just the miss that was. I'm still not, I don't know what Vasily Podkolzin is, actually. I don't want to give up on the kid, but man, when you see what Matt Boldy's been doing, one pick after him, I believe it was one pick, it might have been two.
I think it was two, because Soderstrom was 11. And the thing I'll say about Podkolzin is I thought well of that pick at the time.
Yeah, I think that's right.
On true talent, I think he was one of the 10 best players in that draft. I think the problem was he spent so much time in Russia. And in Russia, if you play with the KHL team, you were told if you make any mistakes, you will be benched. And so you have to play coach's pet hockey. And you can still see that limiting him in the NHL, because anytime he's pressured with the puck, he does a rim around. He does a system read. He doesn't let his creativity shine in those situations, because all he wants to do is not be benched, not be sent down. And I think if they can find a way to coax the talent out of him that was shown in his draft season, I think there could be a player there. I mean, I used to think of him as Mark Stone-like. I thought that was a player he could be. And I still think that potential exists within his game. And I think that is the reason that they gave him a 2-year deal as opposed to one. Because they want to let him have the comfort and the room grow into his game and some security as well. The idea that, hey, if you screw up, you're going to go the Kravtsov route. That isn't really a thought now. Like, he has that security that he can be with the team. And I really hope that he just refines that form that he showed in his draft year, because I thought he was pretty special in that season.
35 career points, 137 games for Podkolzin, 171 career points, 203 games for Boldy, 75 goals compared to 18. Yeah. I mean, listen, you
hate to see it.
Yeah, we could do this forever through, draft lists and pick them apart and whatnot. But that one just seemed like such a big miss. And I believe at the time, you and I were working together, I think. And I remember you talking about Boldy. So whatever, we don't have to rehash that right now. Just another one of those names that Canuck fans get a little sting when they hear. What about free agency for you with the Canucks? They pick up DeBrusk. That's the big one. They needed a top six forward. We thought it was going to be perhaps Jake Gensel, but then of course, things happened and Tampa Bay went in, pushed their chips in the middle. Danton Heinen signs with the Canucks, another forward, Kiefer Sherwood, and then two defensemen in Vinny Desharnais and Derek Forbert. As a whole, what do you like as the collective? And, did the Canucks get better? Did the roster get better with these additions?
That was going to be my lead off, is that if you look at this roster compared to the one that bowed out to Edmonton in the second round, I don't think they've improved. I don't. Not as a whole team. I look at this forward group and I think that part has improved drastically. I mean, Jake DeBrusk was an awesome pickup. I like the contract even. At first, I was a little hesitant about it because I was thinking, is that really what Jake DeBrusk is going to go for in the NHL these days? And then you think about the cap growth. You think about the fact that he scored at close to a point a game when he was playing with Bergeron. And I can see the Canucks looking at that and saying, perhaps we can coax even more out of him if we put him with Elias Pettersson. And I don't think that is reasonable. I think the concern with DeBrusk is that he hasn't been healthy. You look at his EP page and it's a lot of 60 games and 70 games. Do you know what I mean? Not the full 82. So I think of that pickup, I really, really like the Danton Heinen one. That is a player who has been kind of one of my guys, kind of a hipster pick, if you will, to keep on brand. And I mean, He is so versatile. He can do everything. I mean, he can play left wing, right wing, center, penalty kill, power play. Like, and he has had to prove it so many times on these 1 year deals, and he continually gets them, and then he produces at a top 9 rate. And now he finally has a decent contract, some terms, some security. He reminds me of P.S. Suter, is how I would describe his versatility and his ability to contribute. He doesn't have the finishing skill to perhaps thrive on a first line, but neither does Suter. What he does is he helps on the defensive side. He helps you constantly have the puck. And when you do that, well, going to score a lot of goals. And so I think that he can perhaps occupy that role, if not on the top line with Pettersson, perhaps the third or fourth. You know what I mean? I mean, he can do anything. Kiefer Sherwood wasn't really someone I'd given much thought to, truthfully, ahead of free agency. I mean, the Canucks signed him. I kind of went, But then I gave it some thought, and it's occurred to me, and this isn't a thought of my own. Some people have said that he would be the Dakota Joshua replacement if he had left at free agents. Now they have both. I think that's pretty cool.
Good for the playoffs, right? You want to play heavy. And Sherwood was all over the place against the Canucks in the playoffs. He was just, that's all he does. He gets out there and just starts hitting everything.
Very physical. And there are some people in the NHL who think he can bring more to the table offensively. So I think the Canucks might be in that camp, and his deal is cheap. I really think well of that. On the blue line, this is why it's only a D-. I mean, that group is not going to be able to move the puck anytime Hughes and Pronik aren't on the ice. I mean, the original sin of free agency for the Canucks was the Myers extension. I know a lot of people will say he would have gotten a better deal on the open market, and perhaps that's true, but that's because he is a market inefficiency. That is because the market wants to pay more than they should for tall defensemen who have a right shot. And I know the argument is that he played reasonably well in Tocchet's system, and I would second that. But the force multiplier effect of Tocchet's system isn't exclusive to bad hockey players. You know what I mean? If you think he can get him to improve, why could he not do the same for Sean Walker, signed for $3.6 million?
Yeah. There's a few teams that were in on Walker that I think are regretting the fact that they couldn't land him.
Oh, I mean, that contract too.
Yeah.
I mean, my God. And I know it seems as if Alexandre Carrier wasn't an option for the Canucks, but we know that these teams tamper. I mean,
oh, dude, no, the NHL doesn't even give a shit anymore.
No,
they don't. That week before, yeah,
they don't even pretend. So that he signed with Nashville, that contract indicates that he didn't think he would get better from other teams. And I would have preferred the Canucks to sign a Carrier to be the second pair right side defenseman. And then you compound the issue that Myers presents, which is a kind of volatility, if you will, on the blue line. I mean, he's mobile, but he can't really move the puck particularly well as a passer. I mean, you compound those problems with the Vincent Desharnais signing. And again, I know the Canucks think they can extract more from his game than he has shown in Edmonton, but think about that Edmonton blue line. We don't think of it as a particularly deep group, do we? He was healthy scratched only a month ago on that same blue line. So you want to rely on him on that third pair in an everyday role? I'm not thrilled about that.
Yeah, but I think the argument is that they do have, they feel like they've got some depth there.
Yeah,
and I think it extends beyond Juleson as well. Like, I think they're looking down in the AHL at guys like Cole McWard. That could be a reach, but his name just sort of comes to mind. Yeah. Maybe even actually, I think Villander's going to do another year of college, so we won't even bring him up. But yeah, like, I think that they think that there's guys down there that, you know, maybe could take the opportunity. But I see what you're saying. Well, also too, though, like with Desharnais, it's a 1 year deal, right?
No, it's 2.
Oh, excuse me. It's Forbort. It was the 1 year deal.
Yeah. And again, if you have a third pair of Forbort and Desharnais, how well is that?
Well, it's nasty, but it's also nasty in terms of they could get pinned.
Yeah, right? Yeah, because they won't be able to transition the puck.
Yeah. Yeah, but they'll also clear out the front of the net as well. Like
it's a good thing they can do that because they'll be in their zone for entire hockey games.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
you know, and so I think that the Canucks, you know, to borrow a line from Scarface, are a little high on their own supply. Like, they think so well of their system and their structure and what it can do for these players that they think they can produce miracles, and they're going to have to with this blue line, because that is the worst, not the worst, but one of the worst right sides in the NHL. I stand by that. That is one of the worst right sides in the NHL.
I argued that the Myers signing was good in the short term. I like him for next year, don't know beyond. Do you know what I mean? It's like every year that he gets a little longer in the tooth, the foot speed gets lower. You're right about the puck movement. It's never really been his forte, if you will. I like it in the short term though. And I kind of feel like the Canucks are playing sort of, I don't want to say with, a few years in mind, but it is kind of like that. Like it's the window of whatever, Demko and essentially Hughes are. Now, they'll probably get re-signed by this team, but they're on good tickets, to sort of strike while the iron's hot. And I think they feel with Tyler Myers is not only, I think they liked his game last year, but I think they also like the fact that he just wants to be here and wants to be a Canuck. Do you know what I mean? And I think they find value in that, which, that could bite him in the ass in the end, right? Those are the types of things that, you almost want to look past if you're trying to build an NHL team, because, you don't care if they love the city. You care if the team can win, right?
Can't be sentimental, man.
No, you can't. You got to be vicious like the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I think this forward group has improved. The blue line has not. And I'll be curious to see how well the Canucks do this season, because and this is kind of inside baseball, pretty deep cut, but obstruction was one of the things that everyone was keying in on in the playoffs. How many picks people are playing. And I looked at this blue line last season, which had Zadorov, which had Cole, and how much they would run pick plays on breakouts, and how that enabled players who couldn't move the puck to do so well enough for this team. And I think if they crack down on that, this blue line, oh my God, they're going to be cutting pucks in half. It is going to be pretty bleak.
But it'll happen in the regular season, and then we know what happens in the playoffs. So,
yeah,
I think the key is to just get yourself to the playoffs at that point. And then you can, because the game changes at that point, and then you can use those plays that, although didn't a pick play screw the Leafs in one series?
That's right. One. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think this team is good enough to get into the playoffs. Like that is a given for me, but I don't see a contention blue line. I really don't.
Okay. Still time to change things though, right? There is always the trade deadline and whatnot. So, you can maybe, sometimes you can correct your mistakes. Before I want to pivot a bit on and talk about a couple of teams in the West that I think are that beefed up and the Canucks are going to have to worry about. But on DeBrusk though, I think he's a prime candidate, and I'm not a fantasy guy for hockey. I think he's a prime candidate to pick up in fantasy this year, because I believe he's going to have a huge season. If you look at his two best seasons, which was his sophomore year in the league at 18-19, and then the 22-23 year. So he scored 27 goals both of those seasons. He had 50 points in 22-23, which is his career high. But in both of those years, his power play time with Boston was substantially higher, like 50 minutes higher in the 22-23 season as compared to last year. Shooting percentage was at its highest in both those seasons as well, right? So he was getting opportunity on the power play those seasons in Boston. He's going to get those in Vancouver, right? That's the plan right now. So I think DeBrusk is, I agree with you, especially on that contract as well. I thought the number was just about right for him, just because of where the cap is headed, and also it's free agency, right? Like you always get a little bit more in free agency, especially if you're one of the bigger names that is available. So I think DeBrusk is going to have his first 30-goal season. I think he's going to do that quite easily. Like I could see him maybe even touching 40. Some people might be rolling their eyes listening to this right now, but I just think the opportunity is going to present itself more than it really ever has. And I know some people that are Boston Bruins fans will be like, well, but dude, he was playing with, Pasternak and, their top guys as well. But it's like 40 points in 80 games and very little power play time. I think that looks like a guy that's about to, break out here. And Canuck fans are going to love that.
He was hurt this season too.
That's true.
That has to be taken into account. I think he had a hand injury, So
Plus, he had a bunch of issues with Boston too, right? Like he asked for a trade at one point. That's never good, especially when you've got like veterans like Marchand and Bergeron at the time was there still. Chara, I guess, would have still been there with DeBrusk in the early years. Like, I can't remember what year he asked for the trade.
I think it was 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
22, 23.
that stuff, I mean, listen, he's 27 years old right now, so he's still a young man. He'll be 28 in October. So people make mistakes, and you know, this might be the perfect, you know, opportunity for Jake DeBrusk right now. And I can see why he'd be excited as well. And it's a fun team. Like the Canucks they're a very likable team. They did that poll that's out on Twitter right now, and the Canucks ended up being like the 5th most liked team in the NHL, according to this JFresh poll.
Well, we'll see if that holds. I mean, people love a team that's on the upswing. Yeah. As soon as they become good over a prolonged period, then suddenly that popularity starts to take a bit of a fall. So we'll see how long it keeps for the Canucks. I mean, think about that 2010-11 team. As soon as they became contending team, everyone hated them. So we'll see.
Yeah, they really it's funny how the amount of hate that they took. And like, you've got Marchand biting people, or sorry, that was Burroughs biting people. Got Marchand kissing people. Like, it just, they were both just very unlike that whole thing. It was like, I think most of, you know, hockey fans are like, I don't know who to cheer for here.
Yeah.
Obviously here in Vancouver, they wanted the Canucks, but I think even outside of Canada, there wasn't a whole lot of support for that team, which is odd, especially. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe, you know, that was 13 years ago now. So, you know, with the drought that is the, you know, the Canadian drought right now, maybe it's a little bit easier to like a Canadian team like the Oilers, who, perfect pivot here, I think they got better, dude. Like,
I think they are one of the winning teams in agency and through the offseason entirely. And I think like one qualm I kind of have with the offseason that they've put together is that it's a little more future oriented than I would want from a team in that position. I mean, you look at them trading a future first to move into the draft and take Sam O'Reilly. That one kind of puzzled me because Sam O'Reilly in that spot is kind of a reach. I mean, I don't know, not an egregious one, but a little high for my blood. And
what's the background on him?
A London Knights. They always get overdrafted.
Yeah.
But he was really good. He had a good playoffs too. He played through some pain. Really tough. I mean, you know, Ryan O'Reilly, he's kind of that archetype. Definitely not the same quality because Ryan O'Reilly is an amazing hockey player. But I saw that and I was kind of puzzled by it because they should not be focusing on the future. I mean, you have one season left of Bouchard and Draisaitl on cheap deals. So you would think that first as a trade chip would be most valuable. But perhaps they think that they can build up Sam O'Reilly's value to the point that it exceeds a first round pick. Maybe. I don't know.
But Victor Arvidsson,
fantastic
pickup. That's the kind of guy you win in the playoffs with. And then Skinner was a great gamble as well.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of, Skinner. Yeah, and you know what? They had to trade someone to create some room on the cap, and I don't think anyone is taking Cody Ceci off their hands. So you know, they had to.
I know all about Cody Ceci.
Oh, I bet you do. So, I mean, you take that situation and you add Matthew Savoy, who I think isn't as good as people think he is as a prospect. I've always been kind of low on him, but he's immediately the top prospect in Edmonton's system. So, you know, to take that situation and capitalize on it in that way is pretty impressive. And what's really funny about it all is that Jeff Jackson is only the interim GM and he doesn't want the job and he's crushing it. I mean, if he was around instead of Ken Holland, imagine, I mean, this team might have a cup at this moment. Seriously.
Jack Campbell, baby. Jack Campbell. Yikes. Is Dylan Holloway not considered a prospect anymore? I think he's
graduated.
He's graduated, eh?
Yeah, because we're doing our prospect pool rankings and we do it according to Calder status. And he's not eligible for the Calder. So for us, he isn't a prospect.
I think the Oilers are going to win the Pacific. I don't think I'm reaching saying that. And I really think that they're going to be there. They're going to be, I think, in the Western Conference Final.
I think they have
at
to
least
be the cup favorites at this point.
Yeah, I think I would say bare minimum, they're going to make another WCF. But after that, you never know, right? Like the NHL, it's attrition and all that stuff when it comes to the playoffs, as we know.
Yeah.
What about the Preds, though? I thought they just absolutely hit a home run. Like, look at the names. And I know what you're going to say, but I'm just talking about for next season, short term, here we go. Like, they got the goaltender, they got the stud defenseman, they got the sniper up front in Forsberg. Now they got Steve Stamkos. Now they got John Marshall. So, yeah, I'm calling him Steve now that he's in Nashville.
Yeah, go for it.
And Brady Shea, another, again, you can quibble about the length of the contracts, where they're at in terms of their age, blah, blah, blah. But for next season, they have to be considered one of the teams in the West that could come out of there.
How many teams can contend with 12 million in dead cap space?
Right?
Well, no, I'm serious, because I mean, I don't think this group is good enough to contend. I think they'll do some damage in the Western Conference, but I don't think this team can contend.
What, Nashville?
No. I don't think that they're deep enough. I don't think that they're talented enough. I think they're relying. I mean, you look at the Puckpedia page.
I'm pulling it up right now. Just
all those contracts that you mentioned with Ryan O'Reilly, 34, 33, 33.
Okay, but I posed you off the start, though. I'm talking about in the now, going into next season, this team, like Philip Forsberg, Steven Stamkos, Marchessault, Riley, they're stacked up front. What about the D? Let's take a look at the D. Yossi, Shea, Carrier, which you talked about.
Yeah.
Where are you at with Luke Shen right now? That's questionable. I'll give you that.
Seventh defenseman.
Dante Fabro, still young kid. Don't quite know what he is. Lazon, we saw many times in the postseason last year. I mean, I don't love the blue line. I love the goaltending, and I love the forward group.
I think they have a ceiling of the second round.
Because,
I mean, you look at Stamkos, he's already showing some signs of age-related decline. He can't drive play. He can't, he needs someone to set him up. And I think he'll still score a lot of goals. 30 plus seems totally attainable. But without Nikita Kucherov, well, we'll see. I mean, Jonathan Marchessault, same thing. I mean, he scored 40 last season, but are the percentages going to hold? We'll see.
Power play specialist with Stamkos. I'll give you that.
I don't know. I'm not really buying Nashville. I think they have a low ceiling, and I think that they should have kept with the rebuild. And yeah, maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't know. I'm just not buying.
I think in the short term, you might be wrong. I don't know. I can't argue with the fact that, maybe second round is their ceiling. But I mean, good teams get put out in the second round, right?
Yeah.
That's just the way the NHL is. But yeah, 19 of his 40 goals last year, and 40 goals at 33 years old is pretty impressive. But 19 were on the power play. So he is a power play specialist. We do know about that. And you're right about the 5-on-5 play. But it just seems like they'll be able to pick up points in the regular season. But you're right. Come the playoffs, that's when, you really get to find on, what your depth is of your team and, what you can do at 5-on-5 because of the fact that the whistle gets sort of put away a little bit. So I like their pickups, though. I mean, maybe they're these, shiny sports cars that have, 400,000 K on them, but they're still sports cars, right?
This is true. They'll be fun. I'll say that. This will be a fun team.
And Saros could be a difference maker as well, right? Like, the guy is unbelievable goaltender. And they still have Askarov. Like, I don't feel like I know that there was talk about moving him, and maybe it's his agent, and maybe they're the ones that are trying to get that conversation out there. But like, at the same time too, I would just sort of pump the brakes. Like, what goaltending is in this league, and like, if you got a couple of good ones and you got control of of them as well, like, just hold on, man, because you just never know. Look at the Canucks, right? I mean, where are we? We're July 16th right now, and we don't even know what's going on with Artur Silovs, right?
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if they move him, obviously. But
the problem for Askarov is that they have Saros. They extended him at the draft, and they have Wedgwood as well, who got 2 years. So not exactly a clear pathway to an NHL job, even as a backup. But I mean, as a trade chip, he could perhaps return something pretty cool,
But Askarov situation that he's in right now is the same situation that Silovs was in last year, and what happened with Silovs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot can change in a very short time, but
it is interesting though that Silovs isn't inked right now, don't you think?
I think the Canucks are trying to move. And I'm not a reporter. This isn't my scoop, but I've heard from other people. I think Patrick Johnston was saying that they're trying to move the Pullman contract. So maybe that's a holdup. Because they don't want to dip into LTIR. They want to improve cap space. So because they can't afford Silovs at the moment, they would just have to go into LTI to do.
Look at this Canucks management getting all progressive and shit.
I know. It's bizarre, man.
Far cry from when you and I were doing radio together.
Jesus Christ.
How excited are you for this Four Nations face-off?
Not at all.
You're not? What?
It's so fake. This is the problem. It is so fake.
No. The last one was fake.
They're creating this in-season tournament with 4 teams that no one cares about, and it's supposed to be a pay on, a kind of hey, we know you want the Olympics, but what if we give you something like fuck off?
Well, they're getting the Olympics though. This is the appetizer.
I know it's supposed to be the World Championship or the World Cup replacement.
World Cup, yes.
Yeah, and the World Cup was cool, man. And this one,
the hockey team, like I agree with you. Like in as a whole, it was cool because it's the best on best, which is why I'm excited for this one. But what was the team that was created?
North America and Europe, and I think Europe got to the gold medal game. But I mean, when I was growing up, they had the World Cup. Got to see Mario Lemieux. What was it? 2006 was
I'm so much older than you.
Yeah, I know. I remind you all the time.
The Canada Cup was the one for me. 87 Canada Cup was like my first sports euphoria, where like a team that I was like excited about won something. Because like I'm from the Toronto area, so the Leafs were never winning anything. The Blue Jays, it took a while, but into the 90s. They tickled us a little bit in the 80s, but other than that, the 80s were awful for sports out there. So that 87 Canada, but the one you're talking about is the 04 one, right?
04, yeah. Sorry.
When the US beat Canada.
Yeah, Lemieux wouldn't have made it to 06, I don't think.
That World Cup was fun though, and that US team was badass. Sorry, I'm not thinking of 04. I'm thinking of 96, aren't I?
Yeah, because I think it was 2006 that they had the World Cup. I think. I could be wrong, but I think that was the one.
But there was one in 96, I believe. That's the one the Americans won. I'm getting my dates so mixed up.
Yeah. I mean, that was a long-ass time ago, man. I mean, Jesus Christ.
So why aren't you excited about this, though? Because like it seems like the players are getting up for it. Like it's Team Canada, Team USA, Team Sweden, Team Finland. Like those are going to be, potentially the medal winners at the Olympics.
Look, I'm a hockey fiend, okay? Before this call, I was watching Dmitry Simashev tape. Do you even know who that is? I mean, like that's how I spend my Julys. I love hockey. I love watching hockey, and I will watch this.
Must have the girls just banging down your door right now.
Oh yeah, with Dmitry Simashev. Woo!
Want to come over, watch some tape?
Yeah. Well, I pronounce his name right too. They'll love that. But I mean, it just seemes fake. It doesn't have the real sheen of the World
I think
Cup
the players will
the
get
Olympics.
That. Yeah.
And I like. Will we have the physicality of the Olympics? Will we have the buy-in? Will players be upset if they lose? Will they be ecstatic if they win? It seems so made up and artificial and astroturfed. And I can't get excited for it. And then I inevitably will.
You can't praise the 2 hockey teams from that last World Cup and then turn around and tell me that this seems fake. Like it's you're talking out both sides of your mouth at this point.
There are 4 teams, man. What is this? The CFL?
It's the 4 best countries that play hockey in the world outside of Russia. Okay,
outside of Russia, outside of Czechia, outside of, you know what I mean?
Like, is Czechia in the same ballpark as those 4 over the years? Come on.
They just won the World Championship.
Yeah, but I get that. But anyway, we're splitting hairs here. How about the fact that there's going to be a bunch of Canucks contingent on the US team? Like we know Hughes is in. They've already announced it. He's one of the USA's first 6 that got announced. But I'm going to read you 3 names. You tell me who's in, who's out. Demko, Miller, Besser.
All of them should be in.
All in.
Yeah. I don't see why not. I mean, I think Hellebuck will be the starting goalie, but Demko
there's Hellebuck, Ottinger, Swayman, Demko. So I think Demko's got a leg up on those guys, or at least not on Hellebuck, but on the others.
For the backup job.
Yeah. Well,
JT Miller will be on the team for sure. I mean, Brock Besser, they'll have him on the team, maybe on the 3rd line, but he'll be on the team.
See, this is where I'm seeing some debate. We did a TikTok video about it the other day, so I asked the audience about it. I'm on TikTok.
Aren't you a little old for that?
I'm way too old to be on. I'm probably double the age of most of the people on that thing.
I'm too old for TikTok, man. Even I don't have that.
Yeah, but I look young, so I'm still good.
Yeah,
But no, that was the debate. Besser was the debate because of the forward group. Like, if you really look at that U.S. team, they got obviously Canada's super deep as well, but like that forward group in the U.S. is pretty deep. I think Besser should make the team, but if there was one of the 4 that I think perhaps could not make it, I would say it's either Besser or Demko, and I think it's going to rely on like what Demko is doing leading up to that tournament.
Well,
I don't think he goes on just name alone and past I think they're really going to look, because they got 4 good goalies. I might even be forgetting an American goalie. I know Gibson's in there, and I know a lot of people don't really rate him that high, but he's been toiling in Anaheim, like, pond hockey guys in front of him for the last few years, right? So it's going to be interesting. I'm intrigued by it. Clearly, JD is not. Before I get you out of here, Pettersson spoke to the local newspaper in Sundsvall in Sweden, and he had this quote to say, "We have something good going on now. Life in Vancouver is great. We have something good going on now. We have very good players, good coaches, our new general manager, Patrick Alvin, and since President Jim Rutherford came here, the club has been turned around upside down. We're close to reaching a conference final last year, and now it's just a matter of building on that." So that was translated from Sweden. That's why I said that one line twice. But it's translated from Swedish, that is. But regardless, it sounds like he's bought in. And obviously $88 million will do that for you. But at the same time, too, look at what Petey's had to go through over the last few years. We've been with him the whole time. Like, we were there since he got drafted, talking on radio to anyone that would listen to us.
I was interviewing him in Chicago.
Exactly. But, it was risky business here for a few years. And boy, has Rutherford really changed everything.
They have. The thing that I find fascinating is I don't think they've really been that unconventional. Do you know what I mean? This isn't Kyle Dubas. This isn't the computer boys in Florida. But even being conventional and baseline competent can do so much when you have Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, Thatcher Demko. And he's right. It has changed. The team has been turned upside down. And the one thing I would say about this front office that separates them from a lot is they know when to jump ship. They know when they've made a mistake and they have to clean it up. And they have this amazing habit of doing so for nothing at all. I mean, you look at the Mikheyev deal and it's not nothing. I mean, a second round pick, that could have got them Tyler Toffoli this trade deadline, right? But I think if you conceptualize of it in the way that they jump the queue, instead of waiting at the deadline, they use that second round pick to clear space to acquire DeBrusk, Heinen, Sherwood, yada, yada, then it becomes a little less of a sting. And I think traditionally, moving off of 2 seasons and $4 million should cost a fair bit more than a second round pick, right? So I think that this group's capacity to just, I don't know, it's unique. You don't see a lot of GMs operate that way. I mean, even in season when they traded for Lindholm and Zadorov, and they didn't work out all that well to start, especially Lindholm, and you saw that they were in the trade mill. And you go, wow, they that quick? And this is how this front office operates. If they see something needs to be addressed, they do it. And they do it with haste, and they do it efficiently. And in so doing, they've created a lot of cap room out of a cap hell that they walked into. And because of that, they've created the flexibility that they need to create a team that isn't, I'm not putting money on the Canucks to win a Stanley Cup. They aren't in that upper echelon of contending teams, but I would say on the fringe, absolutely, yeah. And if you're on the fringe, if you're in the fight, you get a couple bounces, hey, you can go pretty far with that. So
as we've seen, as you just mentioned as well, if it's time to bulk up at the trade deadline, they'll do their best to do it.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, Desharnais, you are a Chicago Blackhawk. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
It could be. You're right. And then it's that could. Tyler Myers could be. Right?
Yeah. Well, he has a full no
protection.
Move.
Yeah, he got
full
protection
no move
for
the first 2 seasons.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, if you're Tyler Myers, you're not going to not sign without the protection, right? You're basically saying, guys, I want to finish my career here. So
he took less than market, so that was kind of the exchange on that. You got term and you got protection, so it goes.
Well, JD, it's been fun this year. First year of Vancouver Hockey Show for us. We were able to get you on a couple times at least. Hopefully get you some more next year. Enjoy the rest of the summer. Enjoy the tape that you're going through while it's 35 degrees outside, you madman that you are. But thanks for joining as always, and we'll talk to you again next season.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, Andrew, I think I need to check our security protocols because I'm not sure how the Canucks were able to listen to your conversation with JD in real time, but we have some breaking news.
Oh, do we? Do we have a sounder for breaking news or anything like that?
I think we've spent our budget for the year, but let me just do...
What do you got? What do you got for me?
Everybody's favorite in the playoffs, Sheloff signed.
Shut up. Right now?
Yeah.
Literally just talking about that. We said goodbye to JD and Sheloff. So let me look it up here. Yeah. Sarah Valley's tweeting 2 years, $850K. Woo. That's a good price. I thought Sheloff was going to, what did I say? I think I said 1.5 maybe on one of the podcasts.
I thought it'd be an even mill.
Good thing I'm not running the team, right? Jim Benning contract there. That's good. Good for Archer Sheloffs. Good for the Canucks. I mean, with him and I mean, Demko's already on a great ticket, so they're not paying a whole lot for goaltending. And we'll see what happens. I know Sheloff hasn't been guaranteed that backup spot. That new guy, what was his name? Paterka or something? The guy they brought in from Vegas. So that's a good deal. Nice and tidy, 2 years, $850K. If he outplays that, you're cooking with gas at that point. And I think that is Thatcher Demko not 2 years away from having his contract finished? Not saying that Sheloff will be his replacement or anything like that, but let me just pull it up.
No, but you got to keep an eye on these things.
2 years left on Thatcher. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, interesting. Well done there from Rutherford and great on the breaking news there, Aaron. That a boy.
Mm-hmm. And on a Tuesday even, it's not even buried at 5:00 on a Friday. Yeah.
Exactly. It's so funny. Like we literally just said, like, what's going on with Sheloff? She'll be concerned about it. Don't worry about it. Blah, blah, blah. Thank you to the audience. Let's do some thank yous here because this is it for us. We're not going to come back unless something absolutely earth-shattering happens with the Canucks, you're not going to hear it from us until September. So,
I don't know, maybe a practice facility finally is announced or something.
That might be, that might be cause to break in with an emergency or something like that. Maybe a massive trade, Aaron, but I doubt that's going to happen. So, I want to say thank you, of course, to you, Aaron, for producing the show, being my co-host all year. It's been really fun here. I want to thank our guests that we had throughout the year, Gemma Carson-Smith, of course, JD, Dollywall, even though Dollywall is almost turning into the Matt Damon of Jimmy Kimmel. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, we couldn't get to him. We'll get to him next time. We'll talk to Ricky again next year. He's enjoying his summer at this point. And a few shout outs just to a few of my friends that help support as well. Help support me, Rob Dow at Wired Snowboards, Mike Strato at Vans Canada, and of course Curtis at Northlands Golf. You guys have always been great to me. So many thanks to you and just to you, the audience.
Oh, and hey, 9 o'clock gun.
Of course. The boys over at 9 o'clock gun as well. Rich and everybody over there supplying us with some hats.
Tell you what, I took my mom to see the Rolling Stones when they were in Vancouver the other night. And no joke, 3 9 o'clock gun hats in my section.
Nice.
So yeah.
Love seeing that. I'm sure Rich will love that as well. Check them out at 9o'clockgun.com. They make really cool hats that are very BC based, if you will, very, very Vancouver based as well. But thank you to you, the audience, though, guys, for joining us. A bit of a difficult year per se, just, for myself with some changes and whatnot, but feel like we're coming out the other end and really excited about where we're going to go with Vancouver hockey. And of course, with Sports House and everything that we're doing with Sports House. So check us out at Sports House and rate and subscribe if you haven't already. Give us a 5-star, if you will. And we'll talk to you next season.